kick it off with adding a rubric to an assignment. And we're not walking through how to build an assignment. This is just adding it to the assignment.
Yep.
Right?
Yep. So first of all, we're going to look at an assignment here with a rubric already attached. So this is an assignment I built a while back, but it has all the information, not important for y'all. But here is the actual rubric. And the thing to know about this is that with assignments in Canvas, the rubric function is that once you've built the assignment and you've saved it, so this place right here, there will be a place down here that has a plus button for you to actually build the rubric out. And you'll see that in a minute. I have another assignment that doesn't have a rubric attached. I'm just kind of showing you. So this is what the rubric will look like once you're completed with it. You always have the option to come back and delete it and just or edit it or delete it. And you'll see if we go all the way down here, it shows our total points. But let me go to.
Can you guys see the screen okay? Do I need to turn the lights out?
Yeah, good. Let's go to actually the discussion. So this is an assignment rubric. That means they're going to submit something versus a discussion rubric where they're going to be replying to a prompt. Okay? The reason I distinguish those things is the rubric is located in two different places. For the assignment rubric, it's located below the assignment. For the discussion rubric, you have to go to these three dots and you have to just ask it to show the rubric. And then you'll be able to, and this is the same for your students as well. They are able to see the rubric by going to the three dots and asking it to show the rubric. Now, let me go ahead and go to our example ones where we're going to actually build.
I think that's a really cool piece of the rubric being at the bottom of the assignment because it's right there for the students to see when they click on the assignment.
I'm not sure. I think the discussion is not at the bottom because they're going to be adding, as you can see when I was going through, you saw posts. If you had it all at the bottom, it would scroll forever. So I think that's why they do the three dots. But here is our assignment again, but this time it does not have a rubric attached to it. But you can see we've already built our assignment up here. And as Kevin said, we're not talking about building assignments today. But in this case, we are going to build a rubric. So all you're going to do is click the plus button. And you will get, to begin with, the ability to build from scratch. And now, if you have already built a rubric, or if you have someone else has built a rubric and shared it with you, you can always go to the Find a Rubric.
Inside of Canvas.
Inside of Canvas?
Inside of Canvas.
Yep.
If I have had questions before about instructors, well, I've got it in a Word document, can I just import it? Sadly, no.
Yeah.
Seriously.
You have to build it out.
I'm sorry, Dr. Bell.
So, but you can, when you do the find rubric function, we'll do that real quick. This is a little small. You can expand it and make it a little bigger. What you'll see is you'll see the different courses over here on the left side that are the courses that you are a teacher in. So right now it's selected getting started with Canvas, and it shows I have two rubrics in here. And I can choose either one of those rubrics, or I can go into one of my other courses and say, hey, I know I have in my gradebook class, I have a presentation rubric. And you can come in and choose that if you wanted to. For today's purposes, we're going to build. The first thing you want to do is come in here and give it a title. So we'll say, just practice. And once you create the rubric, it's available to you in any course you're a teacher, and obviously throughout this course, you can use it over and over and over again. So that's the good part about it. Next, what you want to do is you'll be able to start creating your criteria, which is what this morning Patty was talking about, that you have different ways of saying, like, we want to talk about how good the content is, or how many times, maybe you want to talk about would they use APA citing correctly, or just whatever the different criteria that you're going to use to grade them. So you have the pencil object right here, and this allows you to come in here and provide the description for what you want to talk about. So we'll just call this one content. And you can give a longer description down here if you want to. That gives more, so your students understand what does he or she mean by content. You can fill that in. Now we're not going to do that. After that, you have your different ratings. So you can see right now, that always starts off with 2 ratings of 5 points and 0 points. Everything is editable. So say I want four criteria. So you can quickly come in here and we're going to keep it just like it is with, I'll add in titles in a minute. Well, they're not going to let me, so we'll call this needs.
So you're building more of the analytic rubric that
Yes.
Dr. Wood talked about this morning. That's just kind of the default of what Canvas has set up.
And we'll call this, so I'm adding a total of 4 in here, and this one does not meet. So if you notice down here in this other box, this is where you would put in the full description of what the criteria of the rubric for this particular rating. So you would describe in here what exactly, why this doesn't meet that particular expectation, why it hits that particular rating. Okay, so you can see we have our different points. We have 5 points, 3 points, 2 points, but all these things, all the way down to 0, can be changed. So simply and when we change it, it will change it all the way across. So since we have 3, 2, and 1, why don't we make this 4? And we'll update. And you'll notice right here in my box, it's already updated to 4. Now, this is just one criterion, so let's add another one. Now, there's 2 ways to do that. We'll come over to Add Criterion, and you have the choice of either creating a brand new one. If you create a brand new one, what's going to happen is that these are not going to show. You're going to go back to just 2 ratings. But so I will almost always use the duplicate and then just edit everything, because what it does is it will put it back in there. I can change it. Let's call this to design. Say they're designing a presentation. So now we have a new criterion right here that's called design, and we still have the same rating system, but you will want to go through and then edit the different, what full marks means. So like for design, we might be talking about that you had a specific criterion of your design. They need to include introduction, they need to include a body and a conclusion, they need to have these particular types of artifacts, those kind of things that you might add in here. And then following that, you would go through with each one of these. And if you'll notice here, this was worth 4 points, so we got 4 points all the way across, and 4 here, and go ahead and it continues to build on your previous criteria, and it gives you up to 8 points. So
these are the sections when Dr. Wood was talking about how you need to make sure your verbiage and your word choice matters. Those are the sections that you would fill in like that. So what's the difference between getting 2 points and 3 points? What's the difference between 3 points and 4 points?
So let's look at the full version real quick.
PJ, did you have a question?
Yeah, so can we weight those? We can weight those, right? So like design, I don't want it to be 4 points. I want it to be 10 points.
Yeah, you can change that. You don't have to keep the same point values.
Yeah.
You can rate them for different values. But you can see here what Catherine was talking about, how we have, in integration of knowledge is our first one. We have a big, long description right here that talks about exactly what is entailed with this integration of knowledge. This rubric right here does not have different weightings or different scorings, but you can do that. So it doesn't. So we'll do that real quick. This is our other one though. So we could come in here and say, design is really important, and we're going to make this, instead of just the 4 point, we can say this is going to be 10 points. And then we just change it, and automatically the top score at that point becomes 10 points. And of course you'll want to adjust these other ones. Maybe this one's going to be 7, and then on down to whatever.
You're using your points to weight.
Yeah. So using your points to weight. The other thing you can do, if you'll notice right here, is what's called range. So if you click that, all of a sudden
That's nice.
you get a range in between the ratings. So you're not stuck with just that 10-point value or that 5-point value. You can go in between those, which is very nice to be able to do. And when you'll see in the speed grader, when the rubric comes over in the speed grader, there is a place to make comments after you've given the student the rating, and it will show up alongside of their rating.
So in the range, then, if someone gets quote unquote full marks on design, and the range is 7 to 10, you have to manually input on the computer 8 or 9, right?
Yep. Okay. You'll have to manually input what you want that grade to be.
Versus if you don't have
do the range, it automatically gives the grade.
Yeah.
But you can, even if you don't have range, you can go in and put the point value in that you want them to receive and override what the rubric gives you.
Gotcha.
You know, one thing to point out though, that I will say, as Taylor was showing, this adds up as you go down.
Yep.
I would really make sure that you, whatever this is, totals, can you scroll up for me, what the assignment, what you told the assignment total to be.
Here.
So right here, when you're building your assignments, you say this is worth
Yeah.
50 points. Well, you want to make sure that your rubric is worth 50 points.
It will.
Otherwise, your grades are going to be skewed.
Well, also, it will give you an error message, and it says it doesn't match, do you want to fix? And I don't like it doing that, though.
Well, I was about to say, it will have, there will be a box that pops up that says those don't match. But, you know, some people, I will say, just some people may just kind of click it and go, okay, yeah, go away, and not realize what's happening. So that's why I pointed out, for the grade book purposes, you want to make sure they're matching so that none of your grades are skewed.
Okay, so I'm not going to talk much about this, but I'm going to talk about this real quick. Because Sanford's really not using the outcomes feature in Canvas right now very much. It is partially because it doesn't work exactly like we want it to work, and it's the whatever level you build an outcome at. And at Sanford, when we talk about outcomes, it's a little off topic. We're talking about programmatic outcomes. When we talk on course level, we're talking about course objectives. That's how Sanford does it. I've researched this extensively, because the language is skewed. I mean, across universities across the United States, different people use different terms. But at Sanford, we talk about program outcomes and we talk about course objectives. So if we ever do use that feature, we will be using it at a programmatic level. But when you use outcomes, you can actually bring them into the rubric. But we need to build it at the highest level possible, not necessarily at the course level. You want to build it at a larger program level. But it is here, and if you had a program outcome, you would select that. And right now it says you have no program outcomes. You have no outcomes set up. But if I did, they would kind of show up here. And more than likely, someone from your department would have put them in there, and you could go grab one of those and then stick it as part of your rubric to measure that for that program purpose. We hope we get there at some point, but Canvas hasn't quite gotten where we want it to be, and we haven't really set up a system yet for it. But that's what that is, mainly just to show you that why that's there, and probably just kind of leave it alone for the time being. Okay, so you just continue to repeat the process and again, the way that I encourage faculty, especially if you've not built a rubric before, and you're kind of figuring out, how do I do this? Not necessarily the technical part of this part, but just a rubric in general. What PJ mentioned earlier today was thinking back to your course outcomes, your module, outcomes or objectives, course objectives, and the objectives for the assignment. But also, a lot of times it's like, I don't know how to do this. I just say, you have a checklist, when you work on this particular project, you have a checklist in your head of what you're looking for. That's the best. I just encourage people to write down that checklist and write out, what does that actually look like? That's your mastery level. And then you look down, and just like Patty said this morning, then you point out what is the low part of it. And then you've already started it out. And I wanted to ask her this morning if she ever encouraged using just a checklist, because that is a rubric in its basic form. That are these items in this? And that can function too. That's a great starter of building a rubric, is just having a basic checklist, and it's very helpful for students. So essentially, this is the process. You come in here, you tell it you click that add button, you give it a name, and then you start figuring out what your criteria are going to be, and you continue to add as you go down. So now you can choose one of the other. We'll go with design, because maybe we're going to do this one for presentation, and presentation is going to be really important. So we'll keep it at that level 10. And you can see it continues to add the point values. And you could change up the point values on this as well, to, as PJ said, weighted. I think that's a great way of talking about that. The next thing that you need to look at is this section down here. And you have different options to choose from. For using the rubric in the grade book, in the speed grader, you'll need to choose this option right here, which is use this rubric for grading for assignment grading. And that will ensure that when you go into the speed grader, the rubric is available for you to use. Now these other things that are here, there's all kinds of different little features you can say, you know, I'm going to write my own comments with assessment. You can choose that. You can remove the points. If you don't want the students to see the points, you know what the points are, but you don't want the students to see the points. This is a good way to have a rubric for the students so that they can at least know what your criterion is going to be. I have several instructors that like using this because they don't want to tell what the points are. They want to kind of decide what they think is the best as they're going through. Yes, sir.
Do you ever have faculty members use this rubric without the points for students to self-assess their work before they turn it in? You know, to reflect?
I have not had anyone do that, but that's how I have recommended it before.
Or even for peer evaluation, for peers to review the students' work?
Especially on low formative type stuff.
Yeah.
But the great thing about it is you can create one like this and use it for both purposes, one with points, one without points.
Yeah.
So yes. So obviously there's a few different settings here. The most important setting I think of is, was that me? Hold on, I'm sorry. Evidently whenever we hooked up in here, it was already hooked up to the volume. So the volume is working. Is this use the rubric for grading assignments. So once you're all finished, you want to create. And yeah, see my points don't add up. So we're going to say leave different for the time being because we're not using this for anything in particular. All right, so you ready to?
Yeah.
Okay. So let me get Catherine over. Oh, hold on. I do have something else. Yes, sir.
A quick question on the rubric when you got the range there. Is it? I guess you could create another criteria. Maybe it's something that doesn't have a lot of importance, but it's something, an element that you want to see there, and so you could have a single criteria that doesn't have a range. It's there or it isn't.
You could.
And it has maybe a low point value, maybe a 2-point value, but then
Like appropriate citation?
yeah, it's almost like a check.
Yeah.
It almost is an embedded checklist inside your.
That's kind of the beauty of the way this is. I mean, your different criterion are, you can set them up, they're individual, so you can customize it how it suits your assignment.
Okay.
There you go,
So-
posting on time, yeah.
How about that one? And we do reply to peer. So that's something that we always, when we're doing discussions, this is an assignment, but maybe this was a discussion. So you could have that, and then you could set it at whatever point value you want. Yes, that's perfectly perfect. In fact, I have a law professor right now that has 1 point for each of these.
Yeah.
And that she has time parameters. I want the first post to show up on this day. I think it's every Saturday, and I want the reply by Monday. So it gives them kind of the weekend to work on it, and she gets 1 point for each of those things. So yeah, and I've forgotten I was going to show the discussion real quick.
Okay.
So now, just leave it there. Okay, so we're over here on the discussion forum, and here's where they'll reply down here at the bottom. But you see there's no rubric down here. And as I showed you before on discussions, for the students to see the rubric, they have to hit the 3 dots. The same is true for you to add the rubric. And so here you hit 3 dots and you come down here and it's add rubric. After that, everything is pretty much the exact same. Actually, it's exactly the same. You come in, you can either create a brand new rubric or you can go find one. So we could come in here and let's make that bigger. And let's go over here to the grade book. And I just created this practice rubric 1. That's our rubric right there. And I'm going to say use this rubric. Now you will want to come in here, and I'm not sure about this, but I always come in and ensure. I hit edit. I come down here and I tell it to use this grading rubric, this rubric for assignment grading. I don't know. I mean, every time I hit the edit button, I bring it in like this. It never is already checked, so it's one of those things I always check to make sure it's actually happening. And of course, it's going to tell me that's wrong, but that's the one we use, and so we're good. Okay. So remember, for the discussions, you have to hit 3 dots and then add rubric, and it follows what we did on the assignment. No difference there. The only other thing I was going to share was that with discussions, You can, so let me go, this is a little bit of building the assignment, but this is important. Is this, you have to, for discussions to add a rubric, it has to be a graded discussion. If it is not a graded discussion, even if it's just 0 points, if you put graded and you put 0 points, you can build a rubric with it. If you say it's ungraded, it will not give you the option to build a rubric.
Yeah.
The other thing that I would mention is that is cool about the rubrics is if you require peer reviews, and that's a whole nother thing, and have a rubric, we're not gonna go over it, and have a rubric, the students will be allowed to have access to the rubric as they give their peer reviews. And they can actually use the rubric to grade their fellow students, which is actually very helpful and beneficial because it helps them have a criteria of how to actually evaluate what they're looking at.